Well, here we are at Tauratonga Park Raceway, just outside of Invercargill on New Zealand's South Island. This is the penultimate round, round 4 of the 2025 Castrol Toyota Formula Regional Oceania Championship. And we're joined by 4 more of our contenders this evening in the hot seat. Josh Pierson from MTech, M2 Competitions, Enzo Ye and Nikita Johnson, and Barrett Wolf from Giles Motorsport. But we'll start with Josh. Josh, we say goodbye to you this weekend as a competitor. You're heading back to official testing for Indy next. What will be your best memories of competing in these 4 rounds of this championship, which is a long way away from anything that you've done before?
Well, hopefully I have some better memories after this weekend as well to share. So we'll start there and see if maybe I can one up what I've already achieved here and had the pleasure of experiencing. So I think so far I've had the pleasure of being on the podium at each event. And for me, that was, that wasn't the goal when I came here. It wasn't to be super successful or to win every race. It was purely a learning thing, particularly qualifying. So, having the pleasure of being on the podium at each event so far, at least once, has been a big deal for me. And I think so far my favorite moments have been the feature race at Hampton Downs and the sprint race at Manfield last weekend, which was the changing conditions, and I felt like we had a pretty strong car there. So I'd say those are my 2 best memories so far. It's been an absolute joy to be here, and yeah, I'm very sad to be leaving. I'd love to participate at Highlands, but yeah, unfortunately I have a commitment.
You genuinely seem super positive about every aspect of your racing, always smiling, always seem positive, even when things haven't gone quite the way you wanted them to over the last few weeks. Is that sometimes hard to maintain that attitude, to be like that?
Yeah, a little bit. I think it's easy to kind of fall down on yourself, and yourself for me is always the easiest person to blame. And so for sure I can be more down in the dumps after sessions, and I think that's what really is a big deal, is having those people around you that can kind of pick you back up and get you back on your feet. So for sure I have bad moments, but I always try to stay positive and see the bright side of things. I think in particular this kind of whole program for me, I've been frustrated after certain sessions, and my engineer Alex has always been quick to let me know that, hey, we're here to learn. We're not here to be on top of every session and to win everything. And but I'm a driver, I'm competitive, and so yeah, it's for sure easy to kind of be down on myself. But I think that I try to do the best job I can to always have a positive outlook and to get something learned from everything that I do.
So you have a really amazing motorsport CV for someone so young. Quickly, you're obviously heading into, I think, your 2nd season of Indy Next now. You've got a heap of junior Formula experience behind you. You're the youngest ever starter at the Le Mans 24 Hours. And, you're down here doing Formula Regional. We've got graduates who've succeeded in World Endurance, Brendan Hartley, Pippo Durrani in IMSA, Marcus in IndyCar. Which of those routes do you favour currently?
My goal has always been IndyCar. Even when I took some time to do sports car racing, that was always my intention, was to go back to Formula cars and back to IndyCar at some point. But the offers that I had for endurance racing in 22 were just too good to pass up. And I valued the learning there more over taking the next step in junior Formula. And I've worked with some drivers that have done the series in the past, like Alex Lynn. So, I think there is kind of a connection, but for sure, for me, it's always been IndyCar. I'd love to be back in an endurance car. I absolutely loved endurance racing. I think some of my best memories in motorsports have come from endurance. So I would for sure love to be back in an endurance car at some point, but I want to put my best foot forward at trying to make it to IndyCar first. And if I can end up in IndyCar and also have a drive as an endurance driver at some of the IMSA events, I think for me that would be the lifelong dream.
Josh, obviously you're going for your 2nd season now in Indy Next. But given that you've had this 4 weeks, have you changed your expectations? I mean, today the top 12 were within 0.2 of each other. You were right in the thick of that. And also, as a second part of the question, if you were to give advice to somebody else in America, what would it be about what is so good or what is so useful about coming down here?
I think there's lots of useful qualities about this championship. I think the biggest part for me is just the sheer amount of racing and sessions that you get in a short amount of time. I think one of the kind of flaws of a lot of junior formula categories, and it's kind of hard for them to be flaws because they have constraints that they have to work around. Whereas here, we don't have those same constraints time-wise and calendar-wise, so it's easy to have it all back-to-back. And I think that's really helpful as a driver to basically every week be in the car, and you're just getting that nice rhythm and flow, and that's really, I think, where a lot of that learning comes from. I think the best qualities here for sure are the fact that we have 2 qualifying sessions every weekend, 3 races, one of which is a sprint race, and that inverted grid, it helps in a lot of ways because it forces you to race. You can't just be good at qualifying and always start up front. It's going to force you to have to be more in the mid-pack and fight your way forward. So I really love that. I think all those things kind of come together to create a really, really great championship for learning, no matter what kind of stage of your career you're at. And I think we've seen that with drivers like Will Brown coming in to get a little bit more experience before heading into a supercar season. So, I think you can be at any stage of your career and still find lots of learning here. And that was really more or less what some of the guys back home told me, like Jacob Abel, Callum Hedge, Louis Foster. That was some of the kind of qualities they told me about and said, I think you're going to find value in this no matter what you've done in the past.
And do you feel you could follow in Louis' footsteps?
Might be hard. Louis was super successful last year, and really great guy, and he was really on it last year. So I think it would be hard to kind of do over what he did. He was ultra competitive at every event, and definitely the guy to beat every time we showed up. So it'd be hard to repeat what he did, and I just want to see a nice step of improvement for myself in Indy Next. Coming back for a second full year, my first full year was pretty disappointing for myself, and I think that I really was in my own head for a lot of that year, and just struggling with my own kind of thoughts and feelings. And so coming back for a second year, it's really just about improving and having fun. I think that was the important thing that I was missing that first full season last year was I was kind of losing some of that fun aspect. I was too hard on myself and really struggling to find the joy in it. And for me, that's I don't want to be here if I'm not enjoying it. So that's the thing I've always loved about motorsports is I've always loved it and been enjoying every time I'm on track. And so I think I kind of lost that last year. So it's come back now. Being here and in the Formula cars, and I for sure had an endurance, but just that Indy Next car for some reason last year was really frustrating for me. So I think it'd be hard to follow what he did, but I just want to see a nice step of improvement and just get back to having fun at the racetrack with friends and enjoying every moment I get.
As you line up for qualifying tomorrow, where are you going to extract from this track another 0.2 of a second?
It's really hard. I spent some time looking at data with my engineer before coming here. And it's unbelievable. I lose, I think, what I lost to Zagazzetta was 1 corner. It was like all in turn 1. And when you look at the lines, you really have to zoom in to find anything. So qualifying is going to be super tight. And but I love that. I love that competitive nature. And I think that's what brings out the best in all of us. So it's going to be about who can find that little bit more in each corner. Around such a short lap, for sure, it's going to take just that little bit more. I think how you're going to do it is hard to say. As more grip comes down, over the sessions, we've seen that the lap times tend to improve towards the end. And, even then, whether we were on a fresh tire or the new tire, there wasn't really a huge difference. So, it's just going to come down to who can find that last little bit, especially in the dying minutes of the session.
So is it a physical thing or a mental thing?
I think it's more mental. It's really easy, especially around such a short lap and such a fast-paced lap, to overdrive. You can get really confident and charge in a lot of speed into the entry of 1 or 2 and then be completely screwed for the exit. And I think that's really that important side is more mental. Definitely this track is a bit physical because of that high-speed nature, but I think it's just easy to overdrive when the track's this way. Everything's so close, and you know that you need just that little bit more, and so it's really easy to break a little bit too late or try to get back to the throttle a little bit too early and completely kill yourself on the exit.
Just one more question about Teretonga. Quite a straightforward circuit, but are you aware of some of the history here and some of the Formula One drivers that have driven here?
Probably a little bit of it, but mainly from this series past. I don't know too much about the circuit itself. I kind of showed up here to a lot of these circuits blind. So, I've grown up watching TRS, and I can tell you some of the history and some of the drivers I've done in the past. That was kind of my thing. Is when I was little, I was always watching racing, and Alex Lynn and Weck hated this because every time we go to a track on the track walk, I'd always be talking to him about GP3 or GP2, and he hated it. But I thought it was quite cool. So I knew a lot, and I was telling him about specific laps and moments from his career at different tracks and corners. And so I think maybe he didn't appreciate that as much as I thought it was kind of cool. But I grew up watching racing, and so I can tell you some of the past events here from TRS and some of the drivers who have been here in when it was TRS. But I don't know much about the circuit itself and the history.
I'm
of the
going
area.
back to even further history, like back in the 60s and that.
Yeah, no, I'm not aware.
Well, Josh, we'll certainly miss you, and you go with our best wishes for the test and this season in Indy Next, and hopefully you can go out on a high this weekend. All the best.
Thank you very much. I'm gonna miss you guys.